going to focus in on one of the things that we've incorporated into the class, and it's called Interteaching. Essentially what it involves is a lot of self-directed learning by students, and the basic structure in the literature is what we started with, but we've actually made adaptations to it over the last 4 semesters to get where we're at. So students will be given questions, prep questions, that essentially guide their reading at home. So they go home, they do these prep questions. They come into class the next day and they're randomly put into a group with 1 or 2 other people. And they are given a fresh set of those prep questions. They're not allowed to use their book, they're not allowed to use their notes, and they have to teach each other the answers to those questions in class. The instructor, as you can imagine, doesn't do very much lecturing. They serve as kind of like a coach. They wander around the room, and as students get stuck, or if students raise their hand and don't understand something, they help guide them so that they're still able to teach each other the answer, but instead of giving them the answer, they ask probing questions that push them towards it, towards the answer to the prep question. Prep questions are mainly rote questions in the original model. Define this, give an example of this concept, that kind of thing. So we tried it exactly in that form in the first pilot of COM 100, and the students overwhelmingly loved it. So the students come in, they come into class, they're given these fresh questions, right? They teach each other the questions, and then at the end of class they fill out a form. It's called an Interteaching record. On the Interteaching record, they're basically asked, what questions did you have trouble with? What questions do you want to know more about? Is there material that we didn't cover that you'd like us to get to? That sort of stuff. The instructor takes that back and designs a 15 to 20-minute review for the next to lead off the next class over the material the students said they had trouble with or wanted to know more. So it's targeted lecturing or discussion about that material at the beginning of the next class. So you're not teaching stuff students read. You're not teaching stuff that they already kind of are familiar with. And then you move right into the next set of material. Some of the studies actually try to incorporate quizzes, some don't. We added a quiz component to ours. It kind of helps emphasize the need to stay on top of the reading and gives them some credit for doing this in class. So this fall what we did was we created for the in-class, so they still now go home and do their prep questions. They hand them in now in class and get credit for that. And they're put in random groups, and now what they do in their groups is they actually engage in scenario solving. We've created sets of scenarios that they have to work through that force them to use material from the book or from the course and apply it in solving these scenarios. And so they spend their class period working through these things. And so they then do an interteaching record, which we've adapted to kind of get at both the concepts that they do in class as well as at home. And we still do that kind of review session the next day with a quiz. So that's kind of the model that we work off of. And as I said, the assessments that we've done on this, students really like it. Okay, we actually have compiled some data. Sam and I took the prep questions last spring. I don't have the findings quite yet, but we actually wanted to figure out if the use of the prep questions, if you scaffold information at the beginning of the term and repeatedly ask periodic questions about that same core concept in the prep questions as it applies to that chapter's content, if students would retain or improve their learning on those core questions. So we actually devised that last semester, and we're in the process of pulling the data together to see if it actually does improve learning compared to sections where we don't scaffold those questions.